Hello everyone, William here. We are starting on part 10 of the Case 310G Dozer rebuild series. Today we are going to tackle filling the hydraulic reservoir, putting our new filter in, and hopefully running our battery cables, putting our new battery in, and firing the old girl up after a year of sitting. Fingers crossed. We'll bring you along. I'm going to start work now on the hydraulic oil filter. We have our hydraulic oil canister removed down here on our plywood. You can see we have a part number 85517. This is a CarQuest filter, just happened to be who I was on the phone with at that time. And very nicely, it came with this large O-ring here. This goes right here on the canister itself. And here you can see our filter. I'm going to install our filter now. There is an O-ring in this surface here. So what I'm going to do is just take a little bit of oil and run my finger around in that. That should lubricate that nicely. Gently twist and push. Okay, that's nice and snug. Moving here to the bench vise, we have a set of O-ring picks. Gently grab this old one out, like so. Run it around nice and slow. Just checking here with my finger for any burrs or any problems that may have developed over the years from it being squished down too hard or whatever. I'm just going to lubricate the O-ring now. Old oil is fine for this. It's going to run through a filter. Get that started nice and slow. Grab our pick. Oh, that goes in very nicely. Nice and supple yet. Now I'm just going to go around the O-ring a few times just to make sure that there's no twists in the O-ring. That's excellent. Okay, we've cleaned and lubricated all of our surfaces. Going to slide our canister back on. Make sure it starts nice and square. You don't want to cross thread this being aluminum. I'm getting towards the end now. Now I got to grab a wrench. Should be plenty tight enough. Looking now at the operator's platform, we're going to work on filling the hydraulic fluid. A pro tip Charlie taught me many years ago: instead of letting your oil chug out of this and splatter all over the place, you take your pocket knife and pop a nice hole up here, creating an air vent, and then it is much more user-friendly. We are not even registering on the dipstick yet. Another quick pro tip, if you are using these 5-gallon buckets, take your lid off right away if you're done with it. There's quite a bit of oil that hangs out in the bottom that you never can get out with the lid on. Because this dozer only had about 6 to 7 gallons in the reservoir when I drained it, I will not be poking a hole in this bucket lid, so you will be able to see how awful these things are to use without the vent put in them. I think we're there. Finally have contact. Oh yeah. I don't know how well you'll be able to tell, but we're right there. Right on the low side. I'm gonna splash just a little bit more in it since we're here. We're just a scooch over the high point, so that's perfect. And I'm sure we still have air in the system somewhere. The battery box is looking oh so nice, clean, painted, ready to go back to work. I normally like rubber belting, but I opted this time for a piece of plywood because I can build upon it. If I think the battery's moving left or right or forward or backward too much, I can build a little grid around this very easily, and it also prevents my battery from riding plastic on steel. So it's just a little thing to dampen vibration, things of that nature. Go ahead and drop our plywood in. Looks pretty good. I didn't want the fit up so tight on this that it wouldn't move around slightly, so I made it 16.5 inches by 8 inches wide. Seems to fit perfectly. Moving on swiftly, we're going to install our battery cables. I had these units made at our local battery specialist in Mattoon. Those guys always help me out on these projects. These cables are made out of 2/0 copper wire, so we're really going to be carrying the current quite nicely. I have these crimp-on style connectors that I opted to install myself because I had each battery cable made a foot longer than the original in case I need to reroute something or relocate a ground point or something of that nature. Those guys also sent me right away with the proper heat shrink tubing, which is just awesome. Before I get too far ahead of myself routing cables and things, I need to figure out the orientation of my battery here. And right, wrong, or otherwise, I went with the same battery that was in the unit. It was a Napa battery, and it had went bad before the warranty, so I was actually able to get a free battery replacement. So we're going to figure out our orientation right now. That battery does look to be a little on the small side, but free is free, guys. I think what I'm going to do is try to snake my cables up and over the side like this, and then the cable will kind of help locate the battery. All right, I don't know how well you will be able to see back in that jungle, but I stuffed a little bit of extra cable in there in case I make a mistake. But we are going to go ahead and cut this off right around in here and get our piece crimped on. Now that we have our cable marked, I'm going to, unfortunately, pull the thing all the way back out so that we can do this in a little bit more of a controlled environment. We'll go ahead, cut off where we made our mark. That's why you want a set of Klein pliers or side cuts. Squish that back round. All right, let's cut off our insulation to the proper depth. Pretty good. Okay, we have our piece nicely made. The copper is formed a little bit in a cone shape so we can slip our part on. Now we're going to use the back of our little vise here. It's kind of a little small anvil, if you will. This is where things start to get a little bit on the tricky side. That looks pretty good. Too bad. Now the ultimate test. 10-pound pull test. There you have it. Not too shabby for not having the correct tools. I pulled on that with all my might, and I think we're in good shape. I don't have any wiggle in it. Everything seems to be perfect. So we'll call the positive cable done. Okay, we have our cable restrung right here, and we have our shrink tubing that the battery shop provided. We're going to shrink that up now with our blowtorch. All right, that looks excellent. Fills in any gaps where our insulation pulls away once we bend things. That really makes it look just professional, makes it look complete, makes it look like the job has been done correctly. You can see here our positive is just about perfectly in line. I can live with all of that. We're going to turn our attention to the negative cable. Here you can see we have our negative strung into the battery box. Decided to give myself a little extra in case this ever gives out. I can always chop it off and put on one of those wretched crimp style with the bolts on the top. Looking down here, I'm going to make my mark where the old one was located, or terminated I should say, and chop this off accordingly, and then I'm going to shine all of my surfaces as well as the bolt. Okay, I completed the same process for the negative cable. We're now going to shine our termination point. Turn my flash on. Don't know how well you can see it, but we have 100% clean steel to bolt our negative cable to. It all helps. We have our brand new 3/8 bolt, 2 inches long, flat washer, lock washer nut. Unfortunately, there is a shoulder that won't allow me to get the lock washer installed on top of the nut. So I'm going to try for a nylon lock nut, or I may have to put the lock washer on underneath the head of the bolt. Oh, it started. Oh, sweet. Okay, I'll bring in closer. You can see what just happened. Ooh. Okay, cramming you guys way underneath there. I don't know how well you can see it, but there is a shoulder that leaves you no room, unfortunately, to have a lock washer underneath of your nut. So I put everything on top and we'll just keep an eye on it. It's right on the operator's platform. Not a big deal to keep an eye on that for sure. Okay, we're getting pretty close to trying it for the first time. We're going to put our battery cables on. Positive cable, of course, goes on first. Before we get too excited and fire this thing up, I'm going to set the floor pan back in here because I don't fancy the idea of my pant leg getting wrapped around that when she fires off. Before we can start the dozer up, we've got to check all of our fluids. This is going to be attempt number 1 to start the old Case 310G after sitting for about a year. We've checked all of our fluids. Let's give it a shot. We're going to try it first with no ether. Okay, we had a loose connection on our starter, so this is going to be attempt number 2 with starting fluid. Give it every chance. Unfortunately, the squealing sound you heard, hopefully it came through on camera, I believe was the starter solenoid sticking fast, and I can't get anything out of the starter. Even jumping the posts on the starter will do nothing. So I think the next course of action, unfortunately, is to go after all this spaghetti through here and getting our single wire alternator hooked up and good to go. The old girl's fighting me, but I'm determined to get it running. I'd like to thank everyone for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more, and we'll see you next time.